Look, man, we've all been there. Maybe a girl cheated on you, maybe a friend or a family member lied to you and they did you wrong, and now you're sitting here with a grudge in your heart and you can start feeling that hate start to form. But what if I told you there was a way that you can move on from that and find peace in your life? I've had countless experiences in my life to where I could have held grudges. And that's not me trying to sound like the victim or throw a pity party, but it's true. And through my journey, I learned a lot about forgiveness, and I learned just how important and impactful it can be if you use it in the right ways. And a lot of times people have the wrong idea of forgiveness. They think that forgiveness means that they give the person a free pass or what they did was okay. And honestly, that couldn't be farther from the truth. And one instance in my life where I had to learn this the hard way was I was in an abusive relationship. It lasted a little over a year. And after it ended, I remember just feeling so much hate and anger in my heart for this person. And for a long time, it consumed me. And when it comes to relationship grudges, it can be hard because it shapes the way you look at future relationships, if you let it. You could you can meet a new girl and everything seems to be going perfect, but if you haven't let go of that grudge from the past one, you're just going to be waiting for the worst case scenario with any relationship. And it could be friendships too, if a friend stabs you in the back. But the power of forgiveness is unmatched. And I kind of wanted to get into what forgiveness truly is, at least to me, and how I apply it to my everyday life. Because I promise you, you don't want to be on your deathbed when you're 80 years old and just be filled with grudges and hate. You want to be at peace. You want to forgive people. And the best way to approach forgiveness is starting with empathy. I mean, the saying that hurt people hurt people. And it's a saying for a reason because it's true. If you think about it, if there's someone out there who has everything they want and is like very happy, like genuinely happy, they're not going to go around hurting people and manipulating people and lying to those that they love. So you got to approach it with empathy. And in my case, with the abusive relationship, that helped me a lot because I the more I found out about her, she had also been abused, and that doesn't make it okay, but I did have a little more empathy for her because maybe that's all she knew, you know? So you just gotta approach it with a lot of empathy, and it doesn't mean that what they did is okay. And forgiveness has a lot of different forms, you could call them and tell them, you could tell them face to face, which I prefer, but you can also just forgive them in your heart by yourself. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You could just tell yourself that I forgive this person, not for them, but for me. See, forgiveness is a rare scenario, I feel, where you can be selfish. You can choose to forgive them to move on so you don't have to hold the grudge anymore. Because when you're holding grudges, it's like trying to hold a balloon underwater. You can try and try and try to push it and keep it under your arms, but eventually it's just going to keep going up and up. And it's a struggle. But eventually you have to let go of that balloon and you have to move on. But you can also choose to forgive them, but not have them be a part of your life anymore. See, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you have to be close to them and you have to hang out. It means you can acknowledge what they did and also acknowledge the pain and start to move on from it. But you can only move on if that grudge is gone, because holding on to grudges is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's just not how it works. And there's been other scenarios in my life with family members or even friends where, I was done wrong, but I approached it with a lot of empathy. And a lot of times people don't tell you this, but forgiving people is really hard because it affects a lot of different aspects of your life, like even minor ones, like sleep. You know, I deal with a lot of anxiety, and I noticed in the periods of my life where I was holding grudges, it really affected my anxiety and my sleep because I would just be up at night tossing and turning, thinking about what I should have said or how I want to approach the situation. It can affect your relationships, it can affect your job, it can affect the way you just go about your hobbies, like the passion that you have for your hobbies. It can really take a toll on you. So I want to get more into different ways that you can approach forgiveness. One story that stood out to me when I was going through this journey was actually when I was reading the Bible. I don't want to get too deep into faith, but I've kind of been all over the place with my relationship with God. But there was a period of time where I was reading the Bible every day and like taking notes. And the story that still sticks with me today is the story of when Jesus was on the cross and he was being tortured and mocked. And I don't know about you, but my problems and the grudges that I hold could not be nearly as bad as what, what he was going through up on that cross, But I'll get into why that's important more after the story. But as Jesus is on the cross, getting mocked, he says, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know." And that stuck with me because you got to think about it this way. I know it sounds dumb, but like this is all of our first time being a human, We're all just trying to figure it out and make it through. And sometimes people hurt other people because that's all they know. That's how they express their anger, like the emptiness. They don't know other ways to cope, and that could be, they were raised poorly, or it could be, the effects of drugs or just poor choices, but that doesn't inherently make them a bad person. But so I think whenever Jesus said that, it really, really stood out to me because these people were literally torturing him, and yet he still found the courage to forgive them. And like I said, I don't want to make this a huge faith thing. I don't want to push that on anyone. But if you just look at the story, and you can like place anyone into Jesus's position. Like, I don't know if you're a big LeBron James guy. Let's say LeBron's up there on the cross, just for example. The point is I just want just the story to resonate with you like it did for me, because it really opened my eyes, and I was like, man, if he can forgive these people, then surely I can forgive people in my life for lying or for cheating or betraying. I just thought it was a really profound story, and I think forgiveness is incredibly powerful. I've been preaching it to my friends and been preaching it to my girlfriend for the past year, probably to the point where they get annoyed, like, dude, we get it, but it's something that's really important to me, and that's why I wanted to make this first video about forgiveness. And hopefully I can just inspire one person to do the same, because all it takes is just one person. Because imagine if everyone in this world, anytime they were done wrong, imagine if their reaction was the same as Jesus on that cross. Imagine if everyone just said, well, forgive them for they do not know. Now I imagine when Jesus was up there, he wasn't hype about being tortured, he wasn't like, oh, this is lit. It hurt, and he felt a lot of pain, I imagine, but he forgave them. Because just imagine how sick it is, dude, the feeling of just someone completely hurting you and trying to destroy you, and they're trying to get like a huge reaction out of you and have you break down, and instead you look at them in the eyes and you say, I forgive you. Because maybe that's the spark that person needs to to do better. Because when you do that, you're looking out for the people in the future too, by forgiving someone and opening their eyes to changing for the better. Maybe once you say that to this person, they'll be like, damn, maybe going forward I won't do this to so-and-so because I'm not going to get the reaction that I want. And it'll make them think, because if you give them the reaction they need, then they're just going to keep doing it because it satisfies them. And I'm not saying that everyone who hurts someone is just, oh, they're just a poor person who was abused and that's why, because it's still, regardless, does not make it okay. I want you to know that, because like I said earlier, forgiveness is about doing it for you. It's about forgiving them in your heart and being able to move on in peace. And forgiveness is also a really big learning tool. You learn a lot when you sit back, reflect, and forgive the person for what they did. You learn what to look out for next time. You learn how to handle it, how to cope with it. Because, think about it. Wouldn't it be awesome to go through life knowing that you don't have to worry about people hurting you? You don't have to worry about just sitting in your bed depressed thinking, poor me, why did this person do this? You can move on. You can be hurt, and you can still go do the things you love, and you can still hang out with friends and be a member of society and work and have a smile on your face regardless of what's happening, because we're all just being human. And a big thing about forgiveness is forgiving yourself. That's something I had to really, really hunker down on and learn after the abusive relationship. And there's another scenario in my life where I was abused by someone in my family when I was a child. And at the time of when the incident occurred, I really didn't fully understand what was going on. It wasn't until I became an adult that I really understood the severity. And, I could have been really, really upset, but at that point I had learned forgiveness. And I forgave my family member for that. And it was really hard. And the hardest part about that was forgiving myself. Why didn't I say something sooner? Why did I not understand that it was such a big deal? Why am I so stupid? You know what I mean? But I learned to have grace with myself. I learned that I was just a kid who, what was I going to do? I was just trying my best. And that goes with the same with the relationship I was in where I was being abused. I learned to have grace for myself because I was just a person trying to do my best. And I loved this person. And I wanted to fix things. And I don't know, just because bad things happen to you doesn't always mean it's your fault. You shouldn't have to sit and suffer. And you especially shouldn't have to sit and suffer in silence, Sorry, that was a lot of S words right there, and I apologize, my nose is stuffed up, but, suffering in silence is a horrible feeling, and I've been there, but there's always resources, your parents, your friends, even just one friend can make a huge difference, and maybe even you can go up to that one friend and say, hey, I just want someone to hear this because I'm not comfortable talking to that person, but I forgive them, and I'm choosing to move on for myself because I don't want to carry this burden anymore. And I promise you, it is a huge, huge relief to be able to walk through life unaffected in your heart by the bad things people do, because unfortunately that's the world we live in, Bad things are going to happen. People are going to lie. It's inherent to who we are as a human race. And you can't control that. But you can control how you react to it and how you let it affect your mentality going forward through this life. Because we have one life. I know it's obvious, but it's so true. And it's something that's really been sinking deep into my heart lately, is that we have one opportunity on this life. And I don't want to spend it being upset at people. I want to spend it being empathetic and understanding and choosing love no matter what. Because you can do that, I promise you. No matter what happens to you, you can still choose to love, forgive, and move on. And I promise you, it's such a great feeling, and it's going to take time, and it's going to be hard. And there'll be moments throughout your forgiveness process where you're like, screw this. They don't deserve forgiveness. And honestly, that may be true. Maybe they don't deserve forgiveness, but you know what? You do. You deserve forgiveness, and you deserve to be loved. And the more grace and forgiveness we send to our peers and family members, the more people will learn about it. You forgive someone, maybe they forgive someone else. And it's just like a snowball effect. But I appreciate you listening. I'm going to make more videos covering mental health and all that sorts of stuff. I'm not doing this to be famous. I just want to help people. And I appreciate you very much for listening, and look out for the next video. Bye.